are talking glorious, and this one is directed by Rebecca McKendry and stars Ryan Kwanten, who you may know from True Blood. You've also got J.K. Simmons in a kind of a supporting role, sort of. And what's the story? Well, this is one of these kind of high concept, kind of one location sort of style movies that has this kind of interesting idea that has a kind of movie written around it. But what is this interesting idea? What is the story? Well, I'm going to tell you. So, essentially, Ryan Kwanten's character is a guy who at the beginning of the movie we see is very upset. And the movie indicates that it's possibly because of some type of breakup with a woman. And there may be, well, potentially a child involved, we don't know. He's hugging this kind of teddy bear. And, he's in a really kind of bad way, drinking, trying to kind of get over it. And he ends up at this kind of rest stop, this kind of public toilet, where he drinks the night away, gets kind of blathered. And in the morning, he's pretty hungover, so he goes into the kind of the actual toilet area to try and kind of freshen up. His trousers are missing, his phone's been smashed. And there's kind of a voice from this, the toilet stool next to him, sort of introducing himself, and it seems to be somewhat a little bit weird. As the movie goes on, we learn this may well be an otherworldly presence. Now, kind of what form that will take, that will be revealed as the film goes on. So what do we think, and kind of what's this all about? So let's discuss what I think works in this movie. So a reasonable cast. I mean, the cast is quite small. Ryan Kwanten, quite an established, kind of certainly a genre actor here. As I've mentioned, most kind of, I would say, well known for True Blood, but he's popped up in many a kind of low budget kind of B movie as well. And then we've got J.K. Simmons, who we never actually see as J.K. Simmons on screen. It is only a voiceover role, but he gets a lot of dialogue. He is essentially the kind of the entity that is working kind of in tandem with Ryan Kwanten's character. So we do get quite a lot of his kind of character, and as the movie progresses, obviously we'll learn more about him. But nonetheless, these are two kind of quite seasoned actors. So I think the acting here is kind of relatively strong, which is trying to sell this kind of, this kind of strange kind of concept. And the concept is quite strange, but it can't be said it's not an interesting and an original idea. This kind of guy kind of trapped in the toilet and trying to look for ways out, but ultimately this kind of goes into a somewhat kind of cosmic horror sci-fi element. So there is that, and certainly somewhat of a Lovecraftian feel. Again, I don't want to go too much into kind of spoilers because I don't want to spoil exactly what the situation is here. Suffice to say, if you're a fan of cosmic horror, you may want to kind of check it out. Albeit this is a low budget, very sort of self-contained and small scale movie. There's a smattering of other characters as well. And I think everyone here does a kind of a reasonable job. The actual kind of plot projection, I think, is fairly good as well. So, it's a slower paced film, and I do have some issues with the pacing, but I think it goes in an interesting direction, and I think the movie has an interesting kind of reveal or twist as to kind of the movie kind of gets towards its kind of final kind of few minutes, really. I'm not sure if it's entirely earned, if I'm completely honest, but nonetheless, I thought it was an interesting kind of direction to go into. It does kind of make sense when you look back, as to kind of the movie, as to kind of the things that have led up to this. I think that was an interesting kind of way to go. And certainly here there is some interesting themes about kind of like regrets, morality, and a few other kind of ones that I won't kind of really go into, but there's a lot of themes that are kind of explored here, man's humanity to man, etc., etc. And certainly some kind of fun little jokes and kind of like amusing moments. Ultimately, Ryan Kwanten's character is talking to whatever is in the other stall through this kind of glory hole in the kind of the toilet, and there is some kind of like quite funny gags, I have to say. The movie is a very low budget film, and we do get some effects work, and it's a mixed bag, to be honest. There are some effects that I think work pretty well and are kind of quite fun on a kind of a low budget B movie kind of movie. In actual fact, I would say this the effects that work the best are the ones where the effects are slightly obscured. where we don't quite see the whole picture. And I think that's kind of where the movie's, you know, more VFX is the most effective. But there are some sequences, which leads me maybe into what doesn't work here, where we do see more overt, some kind of hero shots, if you like, of some kind of VFX and some kind of strange things that you'll kind of see on screen, and they don't work quite as well. There's a little bit of kind of like, you know, awkward kind of green screeny kind of like composite shots and things like that I think are a little bit kind of distracting. I'm not sure if the movie actually really needed to go that far, if I'm completely honest. I actually think it didn't need to really go through that. And there's some like CGI which looks just like drop-in effects to me, very kind of like cheap and easy kind of drop-in effects. So that's the kind of maybe a little bit of a a little bit of critique in regards to some of the aesthetics. But the real problem I think here is I honestly don't know if the concept is feature-length worthy. Now, it's not a hugely long film, admittedly. It is a relatively kind of short film. But that being said, this feels like it should have been a short, really, rather than kind of a feature-length movie. Because I don't know if the concept is as strong to really kind of hold this movie in a kind of complete feature-length film, because it does feel like once the setup is kind of out of the way and we kind of get into the meat and bones between the interplay between these two characters, that's really all you get. And there are some reveals that happen, but a lot of the time here you feel like is kind of going over the kind of the same kind of areas, really. And I think, to be honest with you, and I assume this is, you know, partly down to budget, but partly down to the kind of the high concept idea, I don't know if it really kind of hold your interest all that much, to be honest. The movie plays its cards fairly close to its chest in regards to kind of what's actually kind of going on, and I can understand as the movie progresses, it kind of drops in more information. You'll learn things about both characters, the otherworldly kind of presence and kind of Aaran Kwanten's characters. But I don't know. I felt it was just lacking a little bit more to it. It needed to have a little bit more kind of going on, if I'm honest. There are a couple of flashbacks. Now, because of the reveal, we don't really kind of get too much of that, and I wonder if it would have been better to have more of a pre kind of sequence before this rather than kind of flashbacks, just to kind of make it feel like it had a few more locations than it actually kind of does, if that makes sense. The actual reveal itself, I feel, and the thing is with twists, you can kind of, I feel with a twist in a movie, you should be able to kind of like more or less guess, but kind of like, oh yeah, I should have seen that coming, sort of thing. I don't know if the movie really did the work to kind of to set that up. I mean, it does make sense when you look back retrospectively, but there's nothing to really suggest that this was the kind of like the direction that it was going. So to me, it was a little bit of a cheat. To be honest with you, I don't know if it really kind of set too many clues the movie kind of going in, and rather it's this big surprise. That was obviously the choice of the filmmakers here, to have it as more of a surprise rather than a kind of something you might be able to kind of work out with the film. You know, again, that was an artistic choice rather than a kind of more than anything else. So, should you watch this movie? I mean, this is really going to be down to, you know, can you sit through one concept idea, one location idea with kind of a slow burn movie, very kind of dialogue driven, but with lots of kind of like themes and some elements of cosmic horror. It's going to be a very divisive film, I feel. Now, is it a good film? I think, to be honest with you, there are some good ideas that certainly don't make it a bad film, but I don't know if I would say it's really all that watchable, if I'm honest. I feel the concept is stretched out too thin, and it would have worked better as a short. So therefore I'm going to go smack bang in the middle and give it a 5 out of 10, which is kind of an average score in the way I kind of do my kind of rankings here. So not good, not bad, just kind of average, but it certainly, I think, would appeal to some who I think would enjoy the themes, but maybe people who don't like kind of slow-moving, dialogue-driven movies won't be as keen. So it's a 5 out of 10. Would you seen it? Have you seen it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.